h6. It's always a great feeling to queen with check. You have won the pawn race and the game. One chess game at $14,000. Welcome to the Chess 24 Banter Blitz Cup Final between Magnus Carlsen and Alireza Firouzja. A quick introduction to the players. Carlsen is 29 years old from Norway. He's the world number 1 with a rating of 2863. He has been world champion since November 2013, having beaten Vishy Anand. Firouzja, he's 16 years old from Iran, world number 28 with a rating of 2728, and he's known for being a very sharp tactical player. The score is level. It is 7.5 each, and this is the final game of the cup. Firouzja has white, Carlsen has black. Let's begin. e4, c5. Carlsen goes for the Sicilian. Knight c3, a6. Knight f3, d6, and Firouzja now goes g3. He doesn't go d4, which would be going into an open Sicilian. Carlsen now plays bishop g4, stopping d4. Bishop g2, knight c6, h3. Giving up the bishop pair, but what is Carlsen's argument? Playing d4 will be very difficult in this game, and because of that, it's okay to give up the bishop pair. g6 played, and now castle. After g6, white played castle. Believe it or not, there's an amazing tactic here, beginning with e5. But I can't believe this tactic works. First question is, why not d takes e5? White now crashes through with queen takes c6 check, take, bishop check. You can only block with the queen, take, take. And white has a nice ending after b3. Perhaps the knight can go to a4 or to e4, attacking this pawn. This bishop can go to b2, and white is slightly better in this ending. You can't blame Firouzja for not seeing this. Castle, bishop g7, knight e2. White wants to go c3, then d4. Knight f6, c3. d4 is next, but Carlsen says no. Knight d7 means c5, the knight on c6 and the bishop on g7 control d4. Rook d1, queen b6. Now 4 pieces control d4 because the queen controls d4 as well. Queen e3, castle d4. All this maneuvering, Firouzja has finally got this pawn move in. Take, take, rook c8. Carlsen wants to use the c-file. Move the knight out the way, and then the rook on c8 will be very useful. There's a problem with the bishop on c1 and the pawn on b2. Firstly, Firouzja defends it with rook b1. Rook c7, h4, planning h5 to start a kingside attack, but also this bishop can now go to h3. Carlsen doubles, bishop h3. Both rooks look very useful on the c-file because the knight on c6 will move, giving black counterplay on the queen side. h5, stopping white playing h5. Queen d2 and now e6. Blocking the bishop on h3, but also giving white a target. And that's why white played d5 now. Take, queen takes d5, knight f6. Attacking the queen, you drop it back, and then black can move the rook. Also, black's got some ideas. Knight g4 can be next. Then the queen on b6 is so useful, attacking the f2 pawns. So that's what Carlsen could have done. If he played that, the knight on g4 is so useful, you might have to take it off. Now in the game, knight e5 played, queen back to e3. The queen's come off. Rook on c8 is still attacked, so let's move it. Knight c3, and the endgame has just begun. The knight can go to d5, and white is a little bit better here because the pawn on d6 is weak. If white can double on the d-file, rook d2 and then rook d1, there's some pressure. Carlsen plays knight c4 to defend and attack. Firouzja now goes bishop d4. A great square for the bishop, and in the commentary, Magnus now realised he can't play knight takes e4. Knight g4 was played in the game. What's the problem with grabbing the pawn? Because knight d5 is possible. And the rooks are lacking coordination. If rook c6, then bishop d7 attacking both rooks. If you take on d4, just calmly take back. And both rooks are still attacked. If you go knight d2, which looks like a very tricky move because attacking the rook on b1, but also coming back to f3 to give a check. You can go knight f6 check. This is the key move. Once the king moves, you take this rook. Capturing the rook means the bishop on c6 protects f3. And if you take back, black still has the threat of knight f3 check, but it is white's move. so you might as well use it to take something. Rook takes c4. And the cool thing about this capture is the knight on f6 continues to attack black's rook. And that's game over, because if you play knight takes, then knight takes e8, you have just won knight for rook, and this will be a win for white. Back to the game, knight g4 played, knight d5, rook c6, f3. White has a really nice endgame. Bishop takes d4 check, take knight e5, which crucially stops bishop d7. King f2, with ideas of f4, gaining space, disturbing the knight on e5. King g7, bishop f1, rook d8, b3, kicking the knight back, and knight e3, a great move, keeping pieces on the board as you have more space and can target d6. With your rooks, king f6, rook d1, king e7, defending d6, bishop e2, rook c8, rook d2, just slowly building up the position, rook c7, and now f4. The beginning of the winning strategy. Black's rooks are misplaced, moving the knight, and we can see the problem. Black's pieces are going backwards. Bishop f3, and the rook on c6 is misplaced, because if you move the rook to c1, then the d6 pawn falls, and then white is coming through. Black is now losing. Knight f8, rook d3, knight e6, and e5. There was another tactical shot here, because the rook on c6 and the knight on e6, if you can attack both at the same time, that would be great. So the other winning move was knight d5 check. This also attacks the rook on c7. So after this check, if you capture, then you take, and then you will win either the rook or the knight. After knight d5 check, if you move the king, then you can just take the rook, and then e5 is coming anyway. Back to the game, e5 unleashes the bishop on f3, take, because you can't move the rook, because e takes d6 check will win the rook on c7. So d takes e5, bishop takes c6, rook takes, f takes, knight c5, rook d4, king e6. Firouzja takes his chance now, swapping off rooks. Rook d6 check, king e5, take, take, rook c2. Let's see the rest. Knight e4 check, king f3, c5, rook e2, f5, defending the knight, and knight g2, a nice way to reroute. Putting the knight on f4 to attack g6, the rook can come to c2, attacking c5. Knight d5, knight f4, take, check, king d4. Even though the knights have come off, the g-file is now open. White switches to the g-file with rook g2, knight c3, rook takes g6, knight takes a2, rook g5, knight c1. A nice finish coming up. Rook takes h5, knight takes b3. It's a pawn race, but a race white will win. Rook h8, c4, rook d8, check. Giving a check and then marching the h-pawn. Now in this position, king c3 was played, which doesn't look great because you're blocking the c-pawn. Another option was king c5, but white is much faster because you're just going to go h5. And rook c8 check will guarantee black not getting a queen. So Carlsen goes king c3, blocking his own pawn, h5, knight d4 check, and pause the video. What does white play here to finish it off? I'll give you 5 seconds. Now you can just move the king, and it will be winning. But a very clean finish here with rook takes d4. Very precise, because after king d4, h6. It's always a great feeling to queen with check. You have won the pawn race and the game. c3, h7, king d3, queen, c2, queen to b2. Great move. The queen here is so good because black cannot promote. King d2, queen d4 check, king c1, king e2, boxing the king in. a5, and Firouzja to win the first ever Banter Blitz. Checkmate in 1 against the world champion. Where does the white queen go? I'll give you 5 seconds. Queen a1, checkmate. Check out one video here and another video over here. If you enjoyed the video, why not like it and subscribe at the same time? Don't forget to hit that bell to get notified each time I release a new video. If you really enjoyed the show, consider a small donation. The link is in the description below. Thank you so much for watching.